Welcome to episode 5 of Love, Love, Love.
Here we are again. Love, love, love.
This is the late night version. Doing these videos regarding like your story has been such an initiation for us. It's brought so much forward, so much resistance. You know, obviously we mentioned in the first one that this is sort of like a death cookie for Chase, something that he has been really wanting to bring forward. And somehow in our co-creation of bringing your story forward, I have also inserted my own resistance and unexpectedly. But to be honest, we just got back from a really beautiful dinner with a dear friend who was reflecting some things to us about our union and about these videos. And we just feel compelled to do part 3, even though it's kind of late at night.
It's like past our bedtime.
It's past our bedtime. So in the last episode, we really left off with this idea that at every moment we have a choice to orient towards love, or not, you know, to choose fear or choose ego. And I think that was like a beautiful thread that came out of your hell experience. And, you know, spoiler alert, Chase goes to hell again. And there's quite a bit of time from his hell experience that we discussed on the last video and the one we're going to talk about today. But I think we're going to just jump in to what the second hell experience showed you.
Yeah.
Without making all the stops along the way.
Yeah. That 2024, the closure of the year in 2024 was an intense year, you know.
2023.
Yes. Yeah. 2023 was the year of the first hell experience, and that year was full of transformation. Right, we did our Fit for Service container. We had one more summit after that experience. My relationship ended. Went to Arcadia. In between that, I saw my best friend for the last time, unknowingly. I did not know that he was on his last leg, but he passed at the end of that year. Right after I got back from Peru on a multiple ayahuasca sitting, and it just felt like this wild roller coaster of a year, and to have it end in that way with him passing like a couple weeks after that trip, it was just like, oh my God, like what is the initiation of this year?
Yeah.
And yeah, that led me into a deeper level of healing, connecting with the breath, connecting with energy work. There was some kind of call after the deep and intense year of medicine ceremonies and healing through community. It was just like, come back to self. Yeah. There was something that told me deeply, like, you need to learn to, like, it felt like I was in some ways outsourcing my power, outsourcing my seeking of God. And of course, those were steps along my path. And it just kind of reeled me back in of like, don't go too far out. Come back to yourself. So there was this prompt to connect with my breath. I signed up for breathwork training in March of 2024 and started doing some energy work training. Had a couple trips to Hawaii in there and ended up being led and guided very synchronistically to my teacher in Hawaii, Kahuna Harry, and training with him in Lomi. And had so many core wound things coming up during that time. Had like the deepest seeds of guilt arising in my system. And that was making itself known during the first hell experience, all this guilt coming to surface. And the guilt, I feel like, really started to move out of my body in that Lomi training in a very significant way, like somatic releases, screaming, crying. And
can you share a little bit about what Lomi is? Obviously, that's a part of the work we're bringing forward together, but can you just share? Because I don't think many people are familiar with Lomi.
Yeah, it's not widely known. It's the Hawaiian shamanic body and energy work. And it's really centered in the breath. The version of aloha that Kahuna Harry spoke to was one of the many layered meanings, but I love this layer, is the breath of God is in our presence. And throughout the Lomi session, you have a giver and a receiver, and the receiver's laying on a table. It's, Lomi can incorporate massage, but the version I learned is not massage. It's energy work and fascia work, but you're centering with the breath. And you are staying connected with the breath, staying connected with sound, and matching that frequency between giver and receiver. And that allows giver and receiver to open themselves as vessels for love to move through. And love really does all the work. You kind of surrender into the energy of where the hands want to go, what wants to be moved. And by staying connected with the breath, both giver and receiver kind of surrender into that void space. And that's where you have the potential to create miracles, for miracles to arise, because miracles are actually like our natural state. We're meant to be experiencing miracles regularly.
Miracles are our norm.
Yeah. And in A Course in Miracles, it says that if miracles aren't happening, then something is wrong. And they happen when our mind surrenders, which is why I love breath work, because it helps the mind surrender. So Lomi is, it kind of runs for like 1 to 2 hours, and hands-on breath, energy movement, prayer, surrender. And a lot of our emotions are stored in the fascia. So it really works the fascia to release those. And I had a profound release during the training, very big. And I remember Harry telling me afterwards, he was like, with everything you've released during this training, you are about to enter into a deeper level of spiritual initiation, but you're ready for it. And that stuck with me because I got back to Oklahoma a few days later and sporadically entered into my second trip into hell.
When he said that, were you like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean a deeper initiation? Were you scared? Were you excited? Like, yes, I'm ready for this? Or like, yeah, what was alive for you when he said that to you?
I definitely had a feeling of like, oh God, like, are you serious? Like, I've been through some wild stuff lately. I was kind of hoping for it to get a little easier, but I think that's kind of, for the mission that I've said yes to, that's kind of there was more I needed to go through.
Yeah.
And I also knew myself to be ready. It's like, well, if you're saying I'm ready, I'm ready, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I had no idea that it was going to be coming just within the span of a few days.
Yeah.
So got back to Oklahoma and actually had connected with a friend there who had some ketamine, and I'd never actually sat with ketamine. Didn't really know what to expect with that. But we did a ketamine and cannabis combo, set intentions, dropped in on that. And this was kind of like me stepping back into a little bit of medicine work after, really reconnecting with my breath. And I felt a confidence going into it. And it opened me up to something. It opened me up to like a level of like truth is the only way I can describe it. It's just like a clearer seeing of the spiritual nature of our existence, and also fully acknowledging that spiritual essence is meant to come through the human body in order to serve and give love and spread love in the world. But I remember feeling like I had accessed something that they didn't want me to know. And it was like a revelation that I felt was like given to me, and just like of how powerful we really are And by just walking as that, we would be able to reflect to others their power too. And people would rise and awaken and become free in their expression and their gifts and their ability to bring love into the world. But I remember a level of paranoia coming in with that experience. And I remember trying to keep my phone away from me, thinking that, oh no, like somebody might be listening. But had a beautiful experience. Despite that little bit of paranoia, I kind of overcame it. And then the next night was when I dropped into this hell experience, and I was not on any form of psychedelics. I took one puff of cannabis. So I was sitting with my mom at my parents' house, and I remember talking to her about how I felt like when we access a certain frequency of love, I was thinking about the spectrum between of fear and love, and seeing them as kind of like frequencies. And if we attune to a higher frequency of love, that we're operating on a different radio station than any of the forces that would come against love. And it felt like this clarity, like, dude, we're protected as long as we're attuning to love, as long as we are orienting toward this and doing that work to drive out our own fears and alchemize them into love. You'll reach a frequency where it's like, you don't have to worry. It's like you can actually free yourself of the fear of somebody coming in and stopping you from doing what you want to do. And that was stemming from my own paranoia, that I was having the day before, thinking that like, oh no, somebody's listening. And I remember as soon as I had that clarity and I voiced it, the world flipped upside down again. And it was like instant. And immediately my mom's sitting across from me, and she's one of these ghoulish figures now. Not in the same way, but like I felt like a darkness in her eyes. And I still saw that grin. And as I started to express to her that I was feeling fear, she tried to comfort me and be like, remember, we're all protected. But she was, again, like this energy that I was receiving from her, she was like grinning and like mocking me. Like, oh, you think you're protected. And I remember so many fears just beginning to fire off in my brain, left and right. Like it was faster than I could keep track of. And it was all of these fears of eternal damnation, of separation, of having gone astray, having led others astray. And I had also been exploring other versions of the Bible at that time, a Hebrew version that used all Hebrew words. And the friend that I had journeyed with the day before was really stressing, like, you have to call him Yeshua. You can't call him Jesus. That's actually like a bastardization of his real name. And we're supposed to call God Yahuwah, not God. And if you're not, like, you're actually like blaspheming. And it was like this fear within, like how I had grown up, like knowing God and Jesus. And so what was happening was, through my spiritual journey, I had been having these experiences of God and feeling these clarities coming through, but it was not matching up with the religious programming that I had kind of grown up with. And so there was a rift forming. And this was like a rupture that demanded reconciliation. But I didn't know that at the time. I was in the upside down.
Yeah.
And I was so cold. I was terrified. My mom's in front of me. I can't feel her love. I'm like, oh my God, I never left hell. I was just allowed to go through this experience a little bit further. And now I'm being shown that I never actually stepped out of it. Wow. Because at the end of that mushroom journey back in August of 23, I had to make the choice to like decide that I wasn't in hell. It wasn't like I just snapped out of it. So it was as if I had just been in it all along, and now the truth was being shown to me again. Like, yeah, you never left.
And in that state, do you feel that you do not have choice?
Yeah. It's the fear was so gripping and the paranoia was so strong that I couldn't believe the words of love coming at me from my own mom. I couldn't believe that I was ever going to feel love again. It was so intense. And it's wild because as I talk about it right now, I can I can connect with the feeling that I had in that night. Like, it's not as intense, but I can connect with the beating of the heart as it was, and this like constriction that was in place. I feel much more open and expansive now, but it's taken a lot of time to process this, you know, and I didn't come out of it that night.
Yeah.
Again, I'd had one puff of cannabis, you know, and I was probably up till 2 or 3 a.m. that night talking with my mom, trying to warm myself by the fire. You know, it's June and in Oklahoma, it's not cold there. It is.
And Chase is always hot.
Always hot. And I couldn't get warm. And I just, you know, we had an event we were going to the next day in Oklahoma City. And I remember just like, okay, I got to get to sleep. So I tried to go to bed, but every time I would start to drift into sleep, my body would jerk in the most intense way. And I have those like kind of little jerk reactions sometimes when I'm falling asleep that you're aware of. But this was another level. It was literally like something was yanking my leg, yanking my arm, jarring me out of any kind of sleep state. And as soon as I would come out of that, it was just fears firing at me. And I didn't have a Bible on me, but that was the only place I knew where to go was the Bible, trying to refute the fears that were coming in. And I was using my electronic Bible on my phone, and it seemed like the text was distorted. I couldn't find any of the verses or the scriptures that would give me comfort that I knew. And when I searched them, other scriptures seemed to come up that I wasn't familiar with that seemed twisted and dark. I didn't sleep a wink that night. And so, you know, morning came, the sun rose, I got up out of bed and went downstairs, and I remember my mom being like, how are you feeling? I was like, I'm still in it. She's like, are you serious? I was like, yeah, I'm still experiencing like hell. I can't feel love. I'm so afraid. And I spent the next like hour or so just trying to drink some coffee and like come back to myself. And I was reading the Bible, and I had gone to the book of Revelation, and I was just trying to make sense of like, where did I go astray? And so many of the verses in Revelation are just wild. It's talking about like all these different churches that have essentially gone astray, you know, and this is the reckoning of like the second coming of Christ. It's the prophecy of John. And my interpretation wasn't helping me. You know, I was interpreting it through the lens of kind of how I'd learned about it in the church. And it wasn't softening the blow of what I was navigating. So we ended up going downtown to this event, and I'm still in this thing, and I feel this huge pressure in myself to confess. And I was just like, I was convinced that I was on a spiral downward. And I was like, I may never sleep again. I don't know if this fear is ever going to lift.
Wait, and you're going to your nephew's. It's like an autism march.
It's like a march for autism. Yeah. And they're like the whole family's like meeting us there.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. I remember Clara was with me, my niece, and my mom and Clara, and I just remember being in such a fear state. Like I was like kind of worried to be around the kids, you know. It's like, I don't want them to feel this. But I tried to record something in the car, and then it was like a video, and I tried to post it, and it was too long, and I couldn't make it happen. I was not Instagram savvy. And so I ended up, when we got there, just like starting to just put out a story. And I just started pressing record on my story. And it's like, I got to get this out, because this is as coherent as I'm going to be if I don't ever sleep again. You know, so I felt that was a real fear. Yeah. Like, I may never sleep again. Yeah. And it just felt like my mind was going to go, you know? So in my world, the world was ending, you know, and I didn't I don't think at that time I thought the world was actually ending that day, but I actually had some fears around that. And it felt like, dude, if this is my reality, like I just need to get it out there and confess anything I feel like I've done wrong. Yeah. And I had that same kind of stuff coming up in the first hell experience, but I was doing it to the people I was with, and confessing and trying to figure out, like, where did I go astray? Where did I miss the mark? Mm-hmm. And this time I was like, I got to broadcast it. So I put this massive story out on Instagram, and oh my God, it was so intense. I remember walking outside, like, doing this, and I was just like oblivious to my surroundings, and we were in it was so hot too. And I was actually hot at this point. I wasn't cold anymore. I was sweating, recording this thing. And I remember when I finished the recordings, my mom was like, "Are you done?" And I was like, "Yeah." And some girl behind us was like, "Thank God." Because she just was just hearing my ranting and my fear, And I noticed, though, right after I shared that, I was like, there was something in me that started lifting. I was like, okay, I've done what I can do. Mm-hmm. I feel like I've got off my chest all that I need to. And I started kind of coming out of it, and we got back to the house later, and I watched it again. And I had so much shame come up in me because there was just so much fear in me.
Do you remember what you said?
Oh my God. I was like repenting for so many things, for trying to seek God in any other way than Jesus. I was repenting for trying to seek God through plant medicines, through any kind of like expansive consciousness experience. It was just like the upside down hell world kind of made everything that felt like love in the normal world seem like it was wrong. And I was in such a fear frequency, and that's what like gave me the biggest cringe. It was just like, oh my God, I don't like speaking from fear. And that's like all I'm doing in that video. And after I watched it again, I pulled it down, and I put out an apology, a written apology saying like, I'm sorry for anybody who's seen this, I'm not doing well. And I went through some really dark experiences, and it's never okay to speak from fear. I truly believe that love wins, but I'm going through something, so I'm taking a break from Instagram. And I stepped back not only from Instagram, I like got off of Insta for a while, but I also like stepped back from all my spiritual studies. I just completely unplugged from community. It was just like, I need to ground. And all I felt safe in grounding in was the Bible at that point. But I started studying it in a new way. I started recording scriptures that would like fight the fears that were still coming into me. Anything to kind of prove to myself that I was not damned to eternity separated from love. And that became kind of my mission for a while.
Yeah. Kahuna Harry doesn't lie.
No, he knew what he was talking about.
I think it's really cool to think about experiencing this. I don't think it's cool you experienced that, but I think it's really interesting how after experiencing that, you reoriented back towards the Bible, but then scriptures that felt like they were talking about fear, or having messages that we should be scared of God, or scared of being bad, or whatever, that you had your own sort of contemplative inquiry process to be like, what was really the message here? Like, what was actually the message of Yeshua, of Jesus in these verses? And I think that's really powerful to have experienced such an extreme fear, and then you're starting to notice when you're reading the Bible, it feels like it's almost perpetuating that fear. And it's like, dude, what is actually being said here? What is the truth? And then really connecting to it in like a new and different way.
Yeah. And I don't think I ever would have sought that depth
No.
had I not had this experience of basically having 48 hours of not knowing what's true.
Yeah.
And so the seeking through the scripture actually started opening me up to the deeper layers of what Jesus was teaching about.
Totally.
And there's so many layers to that wisdom. I think anyone who's operating at a acidic state speaks in a way that only those who have ears to hear can hear. And you may catch glimpses of the message at a certain level, but there's so many layers that you really have to explore deep within yourself to grasp the deeper meaning. And sometimes the meaning is not even meant to be grasped. It's meant to open you up to curiosity and a deeper exploration within yourself.
Yeah. I remember I was with a friend, and he had asked me if I saw your Instagram post, and I did not. And he's like, I think we need to reach out to Chase and like check on him. And I put us in a group chat, and I did. And I know we set up a call shortly after.
Yeah.
And I remember I had just read an article about, previous generations, if individuals felt called to spiritually awaken or, be on some sort of enlightenment path, they would be in a cohort or a group or a community at a monastery or whatever, and really be like seeking God, seeking enlightenment, and doing the inner work together. And I think it's really cool, like where we're at in history at this point in time, that we can synthesize so many different wisdom systems, so many different religions, so many different spiritual practices we can synthesize and explore. And there's so much, but it feels like there's a risk associated to doing that alone, because if we are in our seeking, we're going to meet darkness. We're going to meet our fears. And if we're not resourced and kind of all in this together, it can be really challenging. And I think it's such a dance of sort of walking that solo mission of nobody else can do this but me. And also I think being okay with being alone is a part of being free and a part of a part of the path of awakening. But also like we need each other,
Yeah. And I feel like the journey of awakening, you have these moments where you experience a form of death. And that's where you really need support.
Absolutely.
My first death was my divorce. It's the death of a worldview.
Yes.
It's a death of, I saw the world this way, and now that's broken. And when the mind has a kind of a fixed structure of belief that is oriented in a direction, sees like this is reality, and then that is shattered in some way, like not only does that thing end, but your reality breaks. And there's a real chance to just kind of spiral. And this was another death. Like that's what it was, this death of a way of seeing God, a way of understanding this concept of heaven and hell. And it had to die. I had to meet that in order to expand into the higher potentials of love, because that view was limited in this idea that at the end of times, whenever that comes, which within the religious framework, it's like a day that, Jesus comes out of the sky, and it's like, okay, account for how you've been living your life. And this fear mechanism of like so many people being cast into eternal separation with a select few only being allowed to enter the kingdom. Good. Right. Yeah. And it's like, I've always understood God to be love, but what kind of love is that?
Yeah.
You know? And it had to shatter. And I had to experience what that would feel like to know that it's not true, to know that actually that experience of separation can be felt right here and now. And actually, most of us are living in some layer of that, of being separated from our source, from pure love. And also, that reconciliation was helping me to realize the deeper layers of what was never really resolved in that first hell experience of it is a choice and love is the truth. Anything that is not love is not full truth. And the fears that come up in our systems, the fears that arise, create these hell-like states. And the deeper the fear, the deeper the level of kind of quote unquote hell that you're experiencing. And ultimately, though, these fears are not your enemy. These fears are pointing you toward the love that is hidden beneath. It's veiling the truth of love that we are. And it took me quite some time to actually integrate that second journey. I think the first journey into hell, I didn't really do the full integration process because it had to come back around. And when it came back around the second time, it broke me in such a way that I really went inward and started exploring, what do I really believe about God? What do I really believe about Christ? What do I believe about the second coming? And yeah, it's been a journey. I'm still studying deeply.
Yeah. I think the brain really likes absolutes. The ego really likes absolutes. Like, this makes you good. This makes you bad. This is black. This is white. This is heaven. This is hell. And it feels like you had been engaging in something that was like opening you, community, plant medicine, personal development. You're opening, and it was feeling good, but it was like almost in what felt like direct conflict with like what you knew on a cellular level from your conditioning and your upbringing. And it blared light on that gap, which I think felt like some sort of break. And it's beautiful that in like the repair of that, you got to bridge, like, you know, none of it's wrong. But you got to bridge like what you had learned growing up, and then, yeah, like where you are now, and then like what is true. And I think one of the cool things that I've learned from you is orienting towards what is true. And you have like a very, I don't want to butcher it, but you have like a very sort of defining question of like, is that true? You know, if there's something I'm thinking or feeling or experiencing, you're like, is that true? And for you, true, to make something true means that it's love. And this is like the highest truth, you know? And if we ask ourselves that and then we orient towards what is true, it's actually, I would say it's actually impossible to operate from fear, you know? And I think, you know, this is our second take at this podcast. I think we mentioned that at the beginning. The first time we tried to do it earlier today, we went on a little bit of a topic of things can be true on a lower plane. And I think I used the example of my dad. Like, is it true that I would get in trouble if I did not perform well at my sport? That's true. And it's not love. that's not capital L love.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting in all of our lives to ask, like, is it true? Is that love or not?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a powerful litmus test.
It is.
You know, and again, it's like the highest truth, the highest love.
And fear is, it's interesting because I think fear is often a perceived protector, because going back to this example with my dad, it's like I would be punished if I didn't perform, but that's because he thought he needed to do that so that I could be great at my sport. And so, you know, it's a fear frequency of like, if you don't do good, then there will be this punishment. And if he was operating from like a capital L love, it would be like, Katie, you're great and you're worthy just because you're here, just because you're breathing, just because you're a daughter of God. But there's some fear mechanism that is woven in to his love, because it's like, my dad loves me. But the way that was expressing was through a fear frequency, you know? And I think that happens in so many of our relationships. And I think you can look back your lineage and take a look at how fear has played a role in our traumas. And fear is often masked as love.
Yeah.
And that's where we get really distorted. And so I think really exploring what capital L love means feels really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you said this earlier too, is like the greatest distortions and deceptions are woven with truth.
The best lies are always woven with truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
But fear is like this obscurity on the pure light that is like coming through love. It's coming through this diamond, and it's distorting the light just a little bit, you know, to twist it, and it can still almost be believed as love, but there's something in it that actually doesn't land and doesn't create this like self-love. You know, so like your dad's example is really interesting too, because there's like, yeah, is it true that I won't receive like the love that I desire if I don't perform? Yeah, that's true. And then on a higher level, is it true that I am not loved if I don't perform? And actually at the higher level, like, you're always loved.
Exactly.
You're loved by the source. You are loved. You are a child of God. Exactly. And that's the higher truth that we're always being pointed toward.
Exactly.
And so much of that comes within how we view ourselves and what we choose to believe within the world around us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's so much here with truth and love and generational trauma and darkness. And I think every time there's a fear or a shadow, it's the seed for a gift. I mean, that's part of our motive with Seeds of Light, you know. But I would love for you to share what you notice is different or the same from your first experience in hell and the second, and like maybe how you would describe the different flavors or the different textures that you experienced.
They were so similar in so many ways. It felt so much deeper the second time around because I wasn't on psychedelics. There was a part of my brain that just chalked it up to like, that was a psychedelic experience. Yeah, that was dark. And there's things I can learn from that. There's things I did take away from it. But I also kind of dismissed it as like, okay, I can believe that that's not real because I was journeying with mushrooms. But when it came back around the second time, not under the use of psychedelics, was what really grabbed me. Because it's like, oh, there is a spiritual truth to the way this world works. And now I've seen like a level of darkness that I didn't know existed. Yeah. And it opened me up to that realization on such a deep level of my being that now I have this kind of guidance system inside of me that if I feel some kind of darkness, I can see it in others too, others who have experiences like this. And I can feel it within myself if I'm starting to believe something that's not in alignment with love. And I know, like, it's not actually, the path is not to focus too deeply on that and resist it. It's actually to see it and, okay, ask yourself, is this true? And then orient toward love. That was the big takeaway for me. And that second experience just was so vital to this explorative path that I've been on ever since. It led me to Yogananda's work. It led me to deepening into this idea of the consciousness of Christ coming through us, through every human heart. We're all part of this creation. Every single thing we see around us is a fragment of God. And to the extent that we forget, we experience separation. We experience a diminishment of our divine nature expressing through this human vessel. And our role here is to strengthen that love as much as we can. And I think what you alluded to earlier, I talked about the first hell experience a bit with people, but I just kind of dealt with it a lot on my own. And community coming in during that time, you reaching out like you did, me allowing myself to be seen by putting it out on the story, I received feedback, and a lot of people were very compassionate. Some people were like, please don't make this like Jesus is the only way to God. I love you. Please, don't go down that path. And it was just like, I got mirrors back that started helping me figure out like, okay, well, actually, yeah, to say this is the way and like to have this grip on it actually is part of what had to be broken open during that hell experience. And that is a level of fear, so I don't want to align with that anymore. I see God as this infinitely, like you can't even fathom the amount of love that this source has for us. And that God is willing that none should perish. So I really started to connect with what I feel to be a deeper level of our journey, which is beyond the human existence. It's a soul existence of this evolutionary process that we all eventually return to source. And the darkness that's exposed is something that must be exposed in order for that light to rise. And it's actually the light that exposes the darkness. The darkness would just stay darkness unless the light shone on it. But once the light hits it, it becomes light too.
Absolutely.
And that's how love wins. And it's already finished. I think that attuning to that truth that it's already done was something that landed in me deeply. It's like, okay, God, the source of all creation lives beyond time. And love wins in the end. But we're playing out this timeline unfolding of fear being purged, of love rising, of darkness being brought to our awareness. And that's happening so much right now. And people can think it's getting darker than ever, but it's actually, no, it's the darkness is being illuminated. So have faith, have hope that love wins.
Yeah. I think that's what happens in union. It's like, I think even in our relationship, sometimes it can be like, why is it so hard? Or like, I swear I was like more evolved than this, or like I had already worked through that, but it's like through the bright, bright light of love, because there's so much love here. It's like anything that is not that comes to the surface. And I think we get to see that in union. I also love the idea of just kind of knowing that love wins. It reminds me of the Sophia Code in the Mary Magdalene activation, you call in the angel of completion, and you feel sort of like whatever your own desires are, your dreams, it's like you feel the energy of the completion of like, it's already done. Mm-hmm. And also in Oren's Godspeed challenge that we're wrapping up, he talks about that. He's like, you start from the goal. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like you imagine like, how would you move if you're already there? Mm-hmm. And I wonder what this world would look like if everyone was moving as if love already won. Mm-hmm. You know, I think this world becomes like a really different place, and there's a really different frequency if we have that knowing.
Yeah.
You know? And I'll just kind of, my last thought is, I think because you have gone to the darkness in this way, my experience of you is that you are like very skilled, or there's a certain level of precision you embody with being able to identify fear, because fear is sneaky. And like we said earlier, like a lot of times fear is woven with truth. Fear is woven with love. The family member who's like, I'm so worried about you. Well, they think they're worrying because they love you so much, but it's actually a fear frequency, you know, and a control mechanism. And I think what is so powerful in our relationship with your ability to do this, and then I've seen you do this as a coach and a guide and a leader, is really being able to identify when fear's coming into initiatives, coming into ideas, coming into language, and shining a light on that quickly and precisely. And it's sneaky how much it comes in. I think if you take a step back, most of our systems are operating because we are so attached to fear. Mm-hmm. Vote for this person because if you don't, then this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. You know, take this medication because if you don't, then this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. You know, make sure your kid goes to college because if they don't, they're not going to get a job. You know, it's just like, make sure you buy this beauty product because if you don't, you'll never find a partner. You know, and it's like, it's woven in to the fabric of our existence. And that is why love is the revolution.
Yes. Yes. Love is the revolution.
Yeah. Love is the revolution. I love you.
I love you too.
This has been like so wild telling your story. Mm-hmm. And I think there's so much for you and I to probably unpack and process, because we have really like hit so much resistance with bringing this forward. But I'm curious, just like off the cuff right now, like why do you think we have hit so much resistance bringing this story to life?
So much of the resistance that I have felt, you know, because I've been trying to bring this story out for years. And obviously it was still unfolding, but ego resistance is what I would name as I've met so many of my own limitations around being worthy to be seen, being worthy to tell my story, like who's going to care, all these different things. And every step along the way, that's been encouraging me to step more and more into my authenticity. Mm-hmm. And that urge to tell it hasn't gone away, but it has evolved, because some of the reasons that I wanted to tell it earlier on were much more like self-oriented. Mm-hmm. And as that work has unfolded, it feels like it's just opened up, and I've seen the ways that I was trying to bring it forward and trying to force it. And yet the urge still remained. And it was like this calling. And I think the challenges that we've met, you and I, in telling this, have been the challenges that we needed to meet in order to see deeper versions of ourselves. Yeah. And so many of my old shadows rose to surface. And this birthday coming around and telling this thing, it was like, oh my God, I went into some portals around this. Mm-hmm. And I think that anytime that we have that nudge internally to do something, and we meet the fears and the resistances and we say yes anyways, there's massive growth on the other side of it. I know that every time that I've told part of this, I have felt some sense of like liberation, like that's done. This mission that I've had on me for so long of just bringing this forward is a step along the path. And once that's shed, like what awaits on the other side?
Yeah.
You know, because there's a way bigger mission that you and I are orienting toward.
Yeah.
And I really feel like this has helped us to grow in love within our union and anchored in something into me, like the clarities that I've had around the hell experiences. I could feel that as I was telling them, there was still some threads of like that energy working its way out. But now it feels like liberation.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you feel?
I think for me, there have been like shadows around control. This is like your God whisper, like your own God whisper of like, I need to tell this story. And I'm kind of like in my own experience of like just trusting you, you know, and it's like, and not knowing, not having a plan and not knowing the why, except for that, like you feel the call. And so there's something that like I've had to almost like surrender into the not knowing of like why we're telling these stories or what's on the other side, and just like really like trusting your soul call and being devoted to that and trusting your relationship with God and like just like completely surrendering into what is meant to emerge. And I think some beautiful medicine that has come from telling your story is like, I am seeing the power of vulnerability, transparency, and authenticity more than ever. I think I have always valued those things. But I'm seeing that today, 2026, with AI and filters, and it's just authenticity is the currency of our time. I feel it. And I think there's something really powerful about you stepping into a space and being like, here I am, you know, and this is my story, and it's unfiltered and it's raw and it's real. And I think for me, I think I grew up like really caring about appearances, and like appearances almost mattered more than what was actually happening. You know, it's like, look tough, suck it up, perform, you know, and there's something, it's a fear. It's a fear about like, if I don't keep it all together, then I'm gonna be left out or perceived as weak or unsuccessful or less than. And I think when you really claim, I am a child of God, I belong here, then you just get to like be yourself and know that you're loved without the try, without the effort. And I think, I think it's just really powerful that you had the courage to do this. I think it's really powerful that you love yourself enough to do this. You're like, I'm hearing this whisper and I'm not going to push it down. How many times in our life have we pushed down or ignored the voice that's like, you should do this, or like, this is on your heart, and you just push it to the side because you're like, why would I do that? I don't even understand. And you said yes. And I think to say yes to something like this, like, you have to really love yourself. And I think that's the path that all of us are on to, is finding that deep love for self.
Yeah. It's a level of surrender for sure. And I think one thing I would just say as we wrap this up is that, like, this was my path. Not everybody is meant to travel this path. And I don't proclaim to have any deep knowing of like, this is the truth. You know, it's just like, this is what I have experienced as truth, because I know now what feels like love and what feels like fear on a much deeper level. But I think one thing it taught me, and it took me back to that first lesson that I learned after the divorce, is just like, open your hands, don't grip tightly, be curious, allow for the mystery to unfold. God plays in the mystery. And it's, if we grip and we try to control and we try to say, you have to do this in order to be good, to be saved, we're restricting people's experience of God, because God can be experienced in infinite ways. And I just really feel like ultimately it all comes down to love.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus was talking about when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He was speaking from the Christ. He was speaking from his knowing of himself being a child of God. Yeah. And he said, you are this too. You will do greater things than I. And we're not meant to forget that. We're meant to remember that we are children of God.
Yeah. We did it.
We did it.
How do you feel?
Feel good. Thank you.
Do you feel like you've liberated a part of yourself, or what are you experiencing in this moment?
Yeah, it feels good to have it done. And obviously the story continues, and this whole thing led us to each other, and our story is unfolding now, and we get to write this story, and we get to write it with love. Yeah. I think the liberation usually settles in a little bit more, and like once it's all up and running and out in the world, it's just like, good. Yeah. Next.
Yeah. I'm grateful for the path you've walked that has led us here. Yeah. And I'm grateful for the strength that you have cultivated through the darkness, through hell. And there's something that's very powerful about knowing that you've walked through a version of hell, and that like you can come out the other side and know love.
Yeah. We meet the darkness, which allows our capacity to hold love to expand, you know?
Yeah. And I remember one of my mentors used to say that we can only meet others at the depths of which we've met ourselves. Being your partner, I feel so like honored that you have like gone to those depths, because I feel like that creates so much potential and like such wide capacity for you to be able to hold anything I want to share with you, or I want to explore, and also like facilitating ceremonies for other people and coaching. It's like there's something so profound about having gone there. So when other people bring something to you, you're like, oh yeah, I've seen some darkness, you know, and it's really beautiful.
And I feel like that's a really good point to like anchor in here, is that when we meet those parts of ourselves, when we meet our darkest nights, may it always strengthen our compassion. May we be able to look out in this world and see people who are struggling, see people who are committing atrocities, and know that it's like, okay, maybe that's not right, that's not good, but like they're hurting too. Yes. They're suffering. They're in their own version of hell, even if they can't see it. If love is not the driving force, then there's something higher to be you know, strove for. Yeah. And I just feel like we're meant to move through this world with the eyes of compassion, to see everyone around us through that lens allows them to rise. Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you guys for being with us. It's way past our bedtime.
Let's go to bed.
Let's go to bed. We love you guys. Thank you for being with us in this like raw, unfiltered exploration in this journey through Chase's story. And we'll see you soon.
Love, love, love.